Welcome to this edition of Common Sense, Civics, and Citizenship. Today, we're talking about the different states. I was so excited to find this map of the United States. It reminded me of being a child and being absolutely fascinated by the different states and the different weather and the ways of life in each state. I eagerly looked forward to geography class to learn about each state and the products that they were most famous for producing. I admit it, memorizing the 50 states and their capitals seemed like a lot of work, but what kept me going was getting to know my neighbors and fellow Americans. I treated geography class like a travel magazine. My imagination was sparked. Other people didn't at all live the way I lived. Their parents didn't have the same jobs as mine. The weather was different north to south and coast to coast. I remember learning about the South and their agriculture. Alabama's cotton production and the songs of the South were my favorite chapters, and of course, personally, they were the most challenging. I loved imagining what it was like to live in the sunshine state of Florida and have an orange tree in my backyard. I learned about Kentucky. Their famous product is bourbon whiskey. We didn't learn about that in school. We did learn about their famous horse race, the Kentucky Derby. I remember being envious of Pennsylvania. They had bigger steel production than my home state of Indiana, and I thought the steel mills where I lived were the biggest ever, only to find out that Pittsburgh had us beat. And Indiana's limestone downstate was its hallmark product, not steel. Then there were coal mines of West Virginia. My parents took us kids to a museum where they had a coal exhibit. You could actually go down for a ride into the coal mine exhibit that replicated the coal miner experience. Now, I've traveled to most of the 50 states, but I've never been to Mount Rushmore in South Dakota to see the carved faces of 4 of our presidents. That's on my bucket list. You may never have had the chance to leave your state, but you can get acquainted with your fellow Americans by learning about the industries in each state. If you're interested in a news story about Wyoming, why not look up what their main industries are and how people earn a living there? Most people think Hawaii is famous only for surfing and pineapple. Well, you can add sugarcane and flowers to the list of their largest exports. Dig a little deeper. Get to know your fellow Americans. That's common sense citizenship.